Hi there, I'm Dave Welsh, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to share a few thoughts with you about resilience during the productivity process. Back when I was a PhD student, I started attending this session of AOM every year because I really like to hear about how junior faculty found success in their career. And I heard a lot of great advice over the years, but maybe what stuck with me more than the success stories was some of the talks about failure and how people demonstrated resilience during the process. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today because it's easy to see all the successes that people have had in their careers, but there's a lot of failures along the way too, and dealing with that can be really important in terms of being successful. Unfortunately, you're not Adam Grant. I'm not Adam Grant either, even though we have the same haircut. And you can pick whichever star in this field you want, whoever it is you look up to. The social comparison is going to feel pretty overwhelming. How did they become so prolific? Because, let's be real here. I mean, oftentimes the productivity process involves pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into this manuscript. You've worked on it for years, you send it out the door, and then the feedback comes in, and it is not always positive. Reviewer one maybe thinks your manuscript is highly flawed. The AE thinks, there's not really a contribution here. And all that work leads to a rejection, and that can be pretty frustrating. I think we're all aware that top journal rates of rejection are maybe 90 to 95%, but that really doesn't offer much consolation when we actually get that rejection letter in our inboxes. And these perceived losses, they really do seem to loom larger than the gains sometimes. It can be really tempting to just throw in the towel. Adam Grant, he's even better at failure than we are as well, and that's why he wrote a book about it with Sheryl Sandberg. Like I said, this social comparison road is just not going to be helpful for any of us. We just have to stop. We have to focus on developing ourselves. How can we be the best with our own career and our own skill set? And I really believe that when it comes to rejection, this is the worst part of the best career. We get to come up with really cool ideas and test them. We work with really fantastic colleagues. We have tremendous autonomy over what we do. And sometimes we even feel like what we're doing is making some sort of small contribution in some way. And, I really respect a number of scholars that came to this productivity process, PDW, over the years and shared some thoughts about their recent failures and the obstacles that they overcame during their career. And one of them used this image, which is of a weeble, which is like a spinning top. And these weebles, they wobble, but they don't fall down. They get knocked around, they recenter themselves. And all of us, we're going to get knocked around a bit during the productivity process. That's just the reality of it. And it's okay to wobble in the face of rejection. Eventually, though, we got to keep recentering ourselves. We got to keep on moving. So, how do we do this in the face of rejection? Let's talk short term, then let's talk long term. So in the short term, in the aftermath, it's okay to feel it. You're human after all. What sort of immediate coping techniques are you going to get through this with? Meditation, exercise, maybe that works for you. But no judgment if for you it's venting or cracking open an adult beverage. I've been around long enough to know that these rejections, they happen a lot. They can be really painful. Over time, they do lose some of their sting. You kind of numb out to them a little bit as your career progresses. But you really do need to come up with these ways of recentering yourself so you can get refocused, so you can keep moving forward, so that you're not dwelling on the past. And so once some of that initial emotion fades a little bit, now it's time to actually look at the comments from the reviewers and try to see, are there some themes that emerge? Are there some points that can be easily addressed? And even if the reviewers were wrong, or you think that they were mistaken in terms of their evaluations, what could you do to clarify these potential misunderstandings so that they're not going to come up again? I think that rather than letting a rejection sit for weeks or months, often it's helpful to make these changes, get back under review soon at a different journal in a timely manner. You're keeping things moving forward, The time for ruminations passed, and now you can move on with this paper. Now, what about in the long term, though? Because any one rejection doesn't need to feel like it has a disproportionate impact on your career. If you have some other irons in the fire, some other eggs in the basket, whatever you want to use in terms of this metaphor here. When I was a Ph.D. student and I only had a couple projects, it felt like my whole career was riding on those one or two initial things that I was submitting. But if you have different things in the pipeline, different projects at different stages, maybe different teams of co-authors, even some different methods or topics that you're working on, it can feel like you can have more of a balance here. Any one rejection can be counterbalanced by the hope of some of these other, maybe more promising projects. And when one of these gets super frustrating and you're super bogged down in it, at least there's something else that maybe is at a better stage at that point and feels like you can move it forward. Now, one of the hardest things, of course, is knowing when to leave a project to die. It's hard to abandon something that you put so much effort into, but you really do need to do that sometimes. And if it's not going to get into the journal you want, it's actually going to be less painful just to cut it loose. Finally, on a more positive note, if you do good work, if you're a great co-author to have, your phone will ring when your co-authors come up with new ideas or when they have new opportunities. They'll call you up and say, hey, you're great to work with, let's do it again. And finally, last but not least, there's a rebalancing that needs to occur in life as well. I think it's helpful to find some things outside of work that you're good at, things to look forward to other than just hearing back from journals. You don't want your entire identity wrapped up in work and being a productive scholar. Maybe there's other things where you can make a contribution in those other areas outside of work, groups of people that care about you for other reasons. And at work, don't forget to celebrate all those small wins along the way. And I don't just mean when your paper gets published. I mean maybe when you submitted it or you just made it through a difficult semester. If we don't take the time to celebrate, these moments will just pass right by. And so don't forget to do that. And when you have an opportunity now to be a reviewer or when you're at AOM the next time, don't be instrumental. Focus on being constructive and kind. This doesn't mean that you have to be easier necessarily, but it means that you can be more developmental. Best of luck to you on your journey. I hope to see you someday in person at this PDW at AOM, where there'll be a whole set of new speakers and topics. Thank you very much.